So we come together on first and third quarters to celebrate an honor roll with the whole group. And part of that is to recognize the accomplishments of people who met our expectations for honor roll and Longhorn Pride. And the other part is to share a common message. And the message today is that kindness leads to happiness. So I'd like you to read this quote with me together. Ready? Be kinder than necessary, because everyone you meet is fighting some kind of battle. This is J.M. Barrie and Plato. This quote is first attributed to Plato back in like 400 BC, and then quoted by J.M. Barrie, who's the author of Peter Pan. And it means that even though sometimes it seems like everybody else looks happy, and you think that they don't have any problems, everybody has problems. We all have challenges and struggles in our lives. And sometimes they're obvious. They're outward struggles, like Augie in Wonder, the book or movie Wonder. He had a physical disability and it was an outward struggle that you could see, but sometimes the struggles are inward. Feelings of inadequacy, challenges with controlling temper, family issues, issues with learning in school. There's a lot of different possible things. Executive skills challenges. Sometimes they're really obvious to other people and sometimes they're not. So you have to assume that the people you're talking to might be struggling with something, because we all have our struggles. But we are in charge of creating our own happiness, and we are somewhat, our choices do impact the happiness of others as well. So I have another quote I'd like to draw your attention to. Let's read this one together too. Ready? Go. If you're always trying to be normal, you will never know how amazing you can be. That's Maya Angelou. So, what is normal? There is no such thing as normal. Everybody has uniqueness, everybody has strengths and talents and things that make them special. And sometimes the things that we think are weird about ourselves are the things that make us unique, and they're the things that other people appreciate about us. Sometimes there are challenges and things that we need to improve. But happiness comes from celebrating your own strengths and celebrating the talents of others. Happiness is owning your challenges and working to improve them. Happiness is celebrating the uniqueness in everyone around you. So challenge your assumptions about other people. Challenge your stereotypes. Look for other people's uniqueness. And once you see the amazingness of other people, then you'll start feeling the amazingness of yourself. So a little bit of info about the brain. This is all of our brains, but particularly for teenage brains. There are extra surges of hormones and neurotransmitters and chemicals in the brain. Dopamine is one of the pleasure chemicals. Endorphins, also related to pleasure and satisfaction. Oxytocin is related to social bonding and calmness. And serotonin is the one that provides serenity and joy. And when you're an adolescent and growing, these hormones, some of them drop significantly and have a lot more extremes. The dopamine and serotonin factors can go way down in boys and girls when you're going through puberty. So you can imagine how that could be a challenge if it's hard to find pleasure, if it's hard to find joy and serenity, which just means that level of peace. If it's hard to find those things, that could be a problem. So we're bringing this up for a couple of reasons. One, I want you to be aware of these emotional storms of adolescence for yourself and for your peers. And the actions that we take can sometimes make that worse, or it can make it a lot better. Some of the things that improve these things, that actually increase these chemicals in your brain, are exercise, social connection, and believe it or not, kindness. Things like our community service projects and random acts of kindness days, those things actually have scientific research that they increase these hormones in your brain. So one thing you also need to understand as adolescents is that that social connection piece is really important. So you belong to each other. Your parents and your families and adults are there for you, but more than anything, you're there for each other. So watch out for each other. Make sure that you're aware of what friends are going through and that you help them get that that level of here's the healthy stuff that's going to help you get through these emotional storms. And we have technology on top of it. And we're all guilty of this, adults and kids alike. I know for myself, I spent way too much time on technology this weekend, getting ready for things like this assembly. And so I'm setting a goal for myself this week to try to be off of technology when I get home. But there are scientific effects of social media and cell phones and computers on our brains. They have found that there's a reduced sense of belonging the more time we're spending in social media, reduced sense of empathy, being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes. And because it's all not face-to-face, you miss out on all the nonverbal parts of communication, which are really important for the underlying meaning behind it. So things like eye contact, facial expressions, tone of voice, body language, gestures, intensity, and timing. And so that if you get to the extreme levels where you're really not having much face-to-face activity, you lose the ability to use these skills for communication. So it's really important that we continue to practice these things so that we don't lose these skills. Sometimes if you're reading an email or a text in there and you can't tell what the tone is behind it, you don't know if the person's being sarcastic or if they really mean it, you don't know that level of emotion that's coming behind what the message was sent. The other thing with screen time is it's shown to increase the incidence of depression and anxiety, and the depth of relationships are more shallow. Empathy should have us feeling happy for another person's happiness instead of wanting to compete with that and trying to pretend that we're happier than they are. If somebody's sad, empathy should have us feeling sad for their sadness instead of trying to one-up it and say, oh, well, my problem's bigger than yours. So these are just some things to consider. What does FOMO mean? Come on, you know what it is. Fear of missing out. FOMO is the fear of missing out. So the other thing that can happen with social media is it creates this sense of I'm never enough. I'm never going to be enough. Because I can't access every single site I want to access. I'm never going to have enough likes. I'm never going to have a long enough streak. And so these kinds of social media things can create the sense of I'm not good enough. So be aware of that, and you have to combat that with other things. Like we said before, reducing your amount of usage can make a big impact, even up to 1 hour a day. So we're looking for happiness, connection, and empathy, and giving ourselves a break from technology can help us get there. So now that you know about the scientific effects of technology and the hormones in your body, there are actual science experiments and not experiments, but research and brain scans that show that kindness increases all those things that are naturally going down because of being an adolescent and being on technology. Kindness increases energy. It increases your sense of well-being, your feelings of optimism and positivity, your sense of self-worth, and gives that greater sense of belonging. So it's really important to be practicing it on a daily basis, and all those effects are not just on the person who's being kind, but on the person who's receiving the kindness. So what can get in the way of kindness? Well, things like the cheese touch, that's more 5th and 6th grade, that picture's up there for them. And things like truth or dare, that's up there more for you. The gum 5, that game doesn't have to be a really unhealthy thing. This is perform a random kindness today, a random act of kindness today, that's the dare. Well, that's not going to hurt anything, but if you get yourself in a game where kids aren't playing that way, and once the game started, you don't know how it's going to go. We've had people in the office with physical injuries, with emotional injuries. That game can cause a lot of pain. So thinking about the things we choose to do and whether they increase kindness in our lives and in others. On Roaring Fork Swap in the past couple of weeks, there was a mom who put a picture of her 5th grade son on there who was being bullied and eating lunch alone, and she was really worried about him. And it had like 1,000 people sharing it and liking it. But one of our students was looking at that with his mom and said, that would never happen at Basalt Middle School. After the talent show, we had some teachers that were talking about how we were worried that kids were going to be disrespectful during the talent show. We were worried for kids getting up here, taking a risk like that, having somebody laugh at them. And it was amazing. We were so proud of our kids' behavior. And the teacher was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we were so worried. And the kids that she was talking to said, that wouldn't happen at Basalt Middle School. So I love that we have a culture where kids think that that kind of stuff isn't okay. What if it was happening at Basalt Middle School? Because sometimes it does. If you have the opportunity to go sit with somebody different at lunch, do you? If your teacher gives you a seating chart, a new seating chart, do you walk into that new seating chart with a smile, trying to make that other person feel welcome? If you have the opportunity to choose your own seats, do you go sit with somebody different or just with the same people? So how much are you challenging yourself to step out of that comfort zone, to try to make things better for somebody else? I have a student who, he was in my 5th grade class, now he's a student at CU Boulder. In one of his classes they had to do something that was, it's called a deviant something. So for his deviance activity, he went and tried to sit with other people on college campus at CU Boulder. And he was really, he's an introvert. What does that mean? Introvert. Less social. Somebody who you just feel a little more shy, a little bit more anxious about going to talk to people. He's an introvert, and he knew he had to do it, so he pushed himself into these situations, and he would go sit at a table with people he didn't know. He's like, what if they're going to think I'm weird, they're going to think I'm stupid, they're going to wonder what I'm doing, and he felt so uncomfortable the first couple of times. It took him about 5 times before he finally was like, wow, I'm meeting so many people, I see these people on campus, they wave, I feel like less insecure about it, and it really made an impact to him. But can you imagine what it would be like if you're the person who changes somebody else's life? If they're sitting there alone, and you're that one who makes them feel like they're worthy, that they're okay, that somebody, you know, is willing to talk to them, that's a pretty big deal to think that you could be that person. So we want to make sure we are that school that doesn't allow kids to feel that way. I have had a couple of situations in my life, actually, in middle and high school, where I was making a bad choice. I know you can't imagine I did that. But just saying something that was, you know, not really considerate of other people, doing something that wasn't considerate, and had a friend look at me and said, I can't believe you just did that. That's not okay. And when those things happen, those friendships were strengthened. And I have taken those 2 incidents in particular into my life forever. I'll never forget that friend who said, I can't believe that you think that. And it changed how I think. So be brave, stand up when you have a difference of opinion, or when you see somebody doing something that you think, that's not really matching what my beliefs are. Instead of laughing with them, say something. So we do have, actually, quite a bit of kindness happening at Basalt Middle School, so I wanted to share with you some of what we have going on here. just as ripples spread out when a single pebble is dropped into water, the actions of individuals can have far-reaching effects. Your actions have far-reaching effects. The domino effect can go either way. It could be positive, it could be negative. We want it to look positive. Your choice impacts the next person, and they come around and you see it comes back to you. So what you put out there is what comes back to you. And we're looking for continued success with our school and making sure that we know we can do better, but I think we're doing pretty well. Stand up and say something when you see something that's not okay. Today, we're celebrating those who met our expectations for Honor Roll and Longhorn Pride for third quarter. Like we said, we all have challenges, we all have struggles, we all have talents, and I want you to be proud of yourself if you met it, and if you didn't, I want you to set a goal. Figure out how you're going to get there. I would like the teachers to set up on each side. We'll start with 7th grade, please. 7th grade teachers, come on up. A couple on this side, a couple on that side. More here than there because of the certificates. And I'll remind you about the one clap. Try to wait until the whole name has been said before you clap. Should we practice? Ready? Joe. Okay. Everybody claps, nobody yells out, and we'll celebrate our students. Longhorn Pride is for students who have all 3s and 4s in the habits of a scholar. Those habits were chosen based on international research on what makes people successful in their lives. And so habits of a scholar are considered something that are important to us, and then the academics are the next level. So Honor Roll is those who made all 3s and 4s in academics and in Longhorn Pride and in Habits of a Scholar. And Longhorn Pride, you were allowed to have some academics that were 2s, but you still had to have all the Habits of a Scholar 3s and 4s. And so, when I call your name, if I call your name, come up to this side. They'll hand you your certificate, shake hands, come across the stage, shake hands, and then head back to your seat. You don't have to stay up here. So. applause for all recipients. Remember, kindness increases your energy, it increases your self-worth, it increases your social connection with other people, it increases your sense of belonging, and it increases your happiness and those around you. Work hard, be kind, and you will achieve because it's all connected. I would like Mr. Funes to make a quick announcement about an opportunity that's available, and then we will send you to class.
So, the extension for the First Ascent Leadership trip to CMC in Leadville has been extended for the 8th graders. 8th graders, this means that you have an opportunity to apply for this trip. It's totally free, where you get to learn more about leadership, but also get to go free whitewater rafting, climbing, hiking, other team, activities, and it's all free for a whole week. They even take you there. You don't have to get to Leadville. They'll take you there. It's all free. 7th graders look for it for next year for you guys. But the 8th grader, if they're extending the deadline, that means that they need more students. So apply, and you're most likely to get in. So, thank you guys.
My son participated in that trip, and it was pretty incredible. So I recommend it. It's kids in 8th grade going to high school, and it's also 9th graders that are heading to their sophomore year. So it's a mixed grade level opportunity, but it's pretty incredible. All right, thank you so much for being a great audience. Congratulations. Those of you who didn't make it yet, let's walk out with a strong goal. And those in the back can start with their teachers on the way.